collecting itself together. And then they got all these kids' pictures in the paper. And they got Desmond Clark in the paper, and I don't mean him no harm. Worked with him for years. Now he's in penitentiary for life. That's where he ought to be. But the police put him back out on the street. It's all documented. It was all in the newspaper. Here this guy got a tremendously violent history, and the Charleston PD was going to the magistrate's office, getting him bailed and getting him back on the street. And then he murdered that girl over at the Taco Bell, and nobody raised their voice to say anything about it. Justice is standing out in the street. But I preached Chase Miller's sermon from this pulpit, and I said, this will be the tipping point. Because when all these black kids kill each other, they just dead. But this young boy has white parents. He was adopted when he was a baby. And I said, they're not going to put up with it. And they didn't put up with it. And they rallied the whole community, and they put pressure on the Charleston PD, and they assigned investigators to investigate this murder, and for the last 2.5 years, they're investigating it. And they're arresting people. Justice should be colorblind. And we ought to be concerned about what's happening. And some people need to be locked up because they're violent. And they don't want to live among us. But we're not getting the same protection under the law because we accept less protection under the law. And we don't demand more protection from the law. Well, you read the article that I wrote about the criminal justice system. I done talked to the last 3 governors. I've talked to the last 3 commissioners of correction. Said, we got a major problem. We're going to bankrupt the state. The boys, kids all going to be fatherless, women husbandless, and nobody going to be left in the community to work. And now we got the 3rd fastest grossing out prison population in the country, in this state. Not a single prison bed that's available. They all filled up, no room in the jailhouse end. Now, I'm just helping you understand, somebody got to speak the truth to these people and put it down in writing and let them say, you don't know what you're talking about. But you know what? They never challenge it. Not one single article that I have written have anyone wrote back from the government and challenged anything that was in the article. Because they know the data comes right from their reports. Justice has to matter. Justice has to matter to the church. It has to matter to the people of God. Mercy has to matter to us. Mercy should matter to the people of God. And so we have to pay attention to what's going on, and we have to challenge those who are in responsibility to do something about things, to help people who can't help themselves. Jesus says we ought to be concerned about justice. We ought to be concerned about mercy. Well, let me move on. Verse 24, as we wrap this up. He said, blind guides who strain out gnat and swallow a camel. That's a hyperbole if there ever was one. You're trying to strain a net out just so you can drink something. In the meantime, you swallow a whole camel. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cleanse the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they're full of extortion and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisees, first clean the outside of the cup and dish, and the outside, and that the outside of them may be clean also. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outwardly, but inside are full of dead men's bones and uncleanliness. That you couldn't insult a Jew more than that. Not a religious Jew. They call him a graveyard, a tomb. And you look white on the outside, but inside there's a vile stench, an obnoxious odor. It's a rotten body on the inside of your heart. Do y'all see why they crucified him? Do y'all see why they crucified him? What are you, scribes and Pharisees? Verse 28, even so you also outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside you're full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Verse 29, what are you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites? You build tombs of the prophets and adorn the monuments of the righteous and say, if we had lived in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Therefore you are witnesses against yourselves that you are the sons of those who murdered the prophets. Good God from Zion. He said, you're going to the graves and the tombs and the grave sites of the prophets, and you're putting down wreaths, and you're going on Memorial Day, and you said, oh, if we would have been there, we wouldn't have killed the prophet. He said, out of your own mouth, you will testify, you're the sons and the daughters of those who stoned the prophets. It was your parents who killed the prophets, your foreparents. And you got the same spirit that they have. Verse 32, fill up then the measure of your father's guilt. You serpents, you brood of vipers, how can you escape the condemnation of hell? That's a pretty hard preacher there, y'all. He called them snakes. You brood of vipers, you snakes. You got venomous poison coming out of your heart. Your mouths are filthy, dirty, and polluted. Your hearts are corrupt. You mean God no good. You mean the people no good. How are you going to escape the coming judgment of hell? Verse 34, therefore indeed I send you prophets, wise men and scribes. Some of them you killed and crucified, and some of them you scourged in your synagogues and persecuted from city to city. That on you may come all the righteous blood shed on the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zachariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Surely I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. That pretty much was it, y'all. Any doubt they had about whether or not they were going to have him murdered, it was basically ended right here after this verbal onslaught. But even in this, it was a heart of compassion. It was a compassionate plea to get them to see themselves, to see their condition, and to see the only hope was for them to fall down before God and cry out to God to have mercy upon them. That's what this was. This was a final appeal. This was a final plea. This was a final attempt to rescue these men from the throes of hell. But they rejected.